They had a rumor that I had killed his cousin.
My life was damn near lost, and then that's when Master P stepped in. Master P taught us the right way. It wasn't just about me, it's about we.
Suge, did anything like transpire from that?
Oh, he say Cal ain't big enough for me, him, and Puffy.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Well, I say when you moving, because I just bought a house.
Master P's name rings loud in hip-hop for his business empire and that legendary no-limit grind. But the man behind it all? Way more dangerous than people think. This was the same dude who stepped in when Snoop Dogg's life was hanging by a thread. He almost had Birdman's own brother taken out, and even left Suge Knight, one of rap's most feared figures, second-guessing himself. Say what you want, but Master P wasn't somebody you tested.
Was there any worries on your behalf? Because, you know.
Man, I grew up in the Calliope project.
right.
Ain't nobody gonna solve press me, man.
Right.
I don't care who you is.
He carried himself like a boss long before the fame hit. His story starts deep in the heart of New Orleans, a city that didn't play fair. The Calliope projects, where Percy Robert Miller was born, chewed up kids before they even had a shot at dreaming. In the 1980s, New Orleans had the highest homicide rate in the country, and the Calliope wasn't just a neighborhood, it was a straight-up battlefield. Out there, life wasn't guaranteed. If you made it past your teens, people called it a miracle. Poverty was everywhere and hope was rare. Percy's first real lesson came early. At just 5 years old, he saw his first slayed body after two men started arguing over a beer and the gunshots popped off.
You see nothing but poverty. I grew up in the Calliope projects. This is where my character was built. When I was here as a kid, this was the murder capital of the world.
One of the most violent places in one of the most violent cities in the country.
Looking through that window, little Percy saw one man laid out cold on the pavement. That vision burned into his mind forever. From that moment on, the world didn't feel safe anymore. Every night echoed with gunfire, and kids learned to drop to the floor like it was normal. That's the world that built Master P. Tough, focused, and ready for battle. The world around Percy felt ice cold. Nights echoed with gunfire, and in the Calliope, kids didn't scream or cry when shots went off.
I'm like 5 years old. I hear these guys arguing over beer. I hear the shots. Seen the guy on the ground dead. For a 5-year-old, man, that puts you in a cold place.
They just hit the floor like it was normal life. That kind of chaos hardens you fast, shaping the kind of man who learns survival before school even starts. But behind those walls at home, it was a whole different world. Bedroom apartment just trying to make ends meet. They were broke, but the love was real. Sometimes breakfast was just cornflakes with water because milk was too expensive. But even in the struggle, they had each other. The real anchors were his grandparents, Claude and Maxine. They worked every hour they could just to keep everyone afloat. More importantly, they drilled into Percy that hustle never stops. His grandmother was the spark behind the empire. She once told him, "There's going to be no limit to your success when you dream big."
My grandmother said, "It's gonna be no limit to your success when you dream big." That just stuck in my head. Kept saying, I'm gonna get us out of here. I don't know how, but one day I'm gonna be rich.
At the time, it sounded like sweet advice, but years later, it hit like prophecy. The No Limit name came straight from that seed she planted. And that soldier mentality, that came from his grandfather, a proud World War II vet. The tanks, the camouflage, the military energy behind No Limit, it all traced back to lessons he soaked up at home. For Master P, basketball was supposed to be his escape route. That was his first real shot at freedom. He wasn't just talented, he was a beast on the court, dropping nearly 30 points a game. His skills earned him a scholarship to the University of Houston, home of Phi Slama Jama, where legends like Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler were born. This was supposed to be his shot for the whole family, but life flipped the script fast. In his freshman year, during a routine practice, he rose for a layup, landed wrong, and heard that sickening pop. Torn ACL in a blink, his NBA dream evaporated, all those hours and hopes ripped away. He rode the bus back to the projects feeling like the world closed on him. It was like getting sent to square one and the streets opened their arms right back up. Percy tried the straight route, even took a legit gig selling cell phones, but it was commission only and the paychecks never showed.
And that night, my grandmother put a black dress over the nightstand. I'm gonna wear that to your funeral. Cause the way you living right now, you ain't gonna last. I didn't understand until I had my own family.
The streets, though, kept calling. The hustle looked like the only way to survive. Fast cash was tempting but fatal. He learned that at a dice game gone sideways. Gunmen ran up, shots popped, and his cousin took 8 rounds. Miraculously, P walked away, but the street code was clear. You hit back or you're next. Then the warning from family hit harder than any bullet. His grandmother, who'd seen too much passing, put a black dress on his nightstand and said straight up, "This is the dress I'm wearing to your funeral." She jabbed him in the chest and demanded he change his path. No more games. He'd got his own family now, and that weight pushed him further. The final shove came one day driving through the Calliope with his infant son Romeo in the car seat. Percy looked back and saw that pure, quiet face. In that moment, everything shifted. No more risking his son's future for the street life. That moment with his son broke him down. Percy realized he couldn't let his boy grow up in the same chaos he barely survived. He needed a real way out. No halfway moves, no second chances. And crazy enough, that opportunity didn't come from luck. It came from tragedy. His grandfather passed away due to medical malpractice at a VA hospital, and the family got a $10,000 settlement. Most folks would have blown that money fast, but not P. To him, that check wasn't just cash, it was freedom. With that $10,000, a hungry family to feed, and the streets still haunting him, Percy packed up his wife and baby boy, Romeo, and headed all the way west to Richmond, California. For most kids from the projects, 10 grand was flex money. A car, some ice, a few nights looking rich. But P's mind was wired different. He didn't see jewelry or designer fits. He saw an investment. So instead of wasting it, he opened a small mom-and-pop record store and named it No Limit Records and Tapes. That little shop became the seed of an empire. The grind, though, was rough beyond words. Percy and his family actually lived in the back of that same store, a damp, moldy little space that barely felt livable. Some nights they didn't even know where their next meal was coming from. They shared clothes, hustled just to eat, but P never complained, not once. That store became his classroom. Every day behind that counter, he studied the music game like his life depended on it. He watched what moved, what flopped, and what people were hungry for. He saw exactly how the big labels marketed their records, and more importantly, he started figuring out how to outsmart them. What the labels ignored, P saw clear as day. The streets weren't being served. While record execs were chasing radio hits and shiny videos, there was a whole army of fans in the hood starving for that raw, uncut truth. And Master P, he spoke that language. He didn't move like your typical rapper. He moved like a straight-up hustler. He sold his music out the trunk, city to city, hood to hood, one fan at a time. His marketing was pure street genius. He'd hand out free tapes to the neighborhood dealers with the loudest car systems, turning those rides into rolling billboards, blasting his name on every block.
When I get to a city, I look for the guys with the fancy cars and loud radios. Every drug dealer in every hood and gave them a CD or a cassette tape. That's the person that's gonna market my music.
Then he gave out No Limit t-shirts to the homeless, turning them into walking promotions everywhere they went. Every corner, every barbershop, every barbecue joint, P made sure his name was ringing out loud. While the big labels were obsessed with charts and awards, Master P was building a movement straight from the pavement. His grind hit so hard it started echoing into rooms he'd never even stepped foot in. Before long, Jimmy Iovine from Interscope Records came knocking, waving $1 million record deal in front of a kid from the Calliope. For most people, that's the dream come true, but not for P. He sat down, looked at the numbers, and realized it wasn't adding up. After splitting the money with his team and family, there'd be almost nothing left. Worse, the contract would have locked him down for 7 long years. That wasn't freedom. That was a trap. So against all odds, he turned it down. Something no rapper at that time had the guts to do. That moment lit a fire inside him. He started asking himself, if they're offering me $1 million, how much am I really worth? That question flipped the whole industry upside down. Determined to find the truth, he went straight to the top and asked around, what kind of deal does Michael Jackson have? The answer blew his mind, and a lawyer told him it'd cost $25,000 just to even have that conversation. Master P dropped that $25,000 without hesitation, and later said it was the best money I ever spent. That move changed everything. With that knowledge in his back pocket, he didn't walk into Priority Records like some artist begging for a deal. He walked in like a boss with leverage. P didn't want a record deal. He wanted distribution. And that's exactly what he got. The deal was unheard of, an 85-15 split. No Limit kept 85% of the profits and owned 100% of the masters, while Priority only took 15% to press and ship the records. To put that in perspective, most rappers back then were lucky to touch 20 to 25%, and even icons like Madonna weren't seeing terms that good. It was so groundbreaking, so tilted in P's favor, that music execs quietly vowed they'd never let another artist pull that off again. Once the ink dried, Master P officially stormed the rap game, not as talent, but as a mogul. He built an in-house production squad, Beats by the Pound, and they crafted that signature No Limit sound. Heavy bass, haunting synths, and street anthems straight made for the block. But the genius wasn't just in the beats, it was in the business. P created a cross-promotion strategy that flipped the industry upside down. Every No Limit artist showed up on everyone else's albums, meaning if one blew up, the whole crew ate. And then came the flood. Between 1997 and 1998, No Limit dropped nearly 50 albums and moved over 20 million records. Nobody had ever seen output like that. It was a full-blown takeover. Walk into any record store and you couldn't miss those iconic pen and pixel covers. Tanks, flames, diamonds, and soldiers dripping in ice stacked wall to wall. By then, Master P wasn't just in the game anymore. He had completely rewritten the rules. By the late 90s, the most feared and respected empire in hip-hop wasn't Death Row or Bad Boy. It was No Limit.
My business was garbage back then. Death Row Records. I let them control everything because I trusted them and I felt like they wouldn't do me wrong. They put me in the game. Everything was in Suge Knight's name. On top of that, I was being just disrespected, like, oh, he's whack, oh, he's washed up, he ain't what he used to be. All of that. Felt like I was on my own.
The empire Death Row once ruled was crumbling fast. Tupac was gone, Dr. Dre had already bounced, and Suge Knight, the man who ran it all, was now sitting in a California prison cell. But even behind bars, Suge's shadow still stretched across the industry. He was the kind of man whose name alone made people think twice before crossing him. Power didn't leave when the gates closed. Right in the middle of that chaos stood Snoop Dogg. On paper, Snoop looked untouchable, a superstar with hits, fame, and one of the most recognizable faces in rap. But behind the cameras, things were falling apart. Death Row had drained his money, wrecked his business, and left him feeling unsafe, both financially and physically. To the world, Snoop was still a legend, but to those inside the game, he looked like a soldier stranded on enemy lines. Other labels noticed it too. Snoop was a diamond losing its shine, but signing him came with a price, going toe-to-toe with Suge Knight. Nobody wanted that smoke, nobody except Master P. P saw an opportunity in the danger, and instead of sending a lawyer or middleman, he went straight to the source himself. He walked right into the penitentiary, sat face-to-face with Suge Knight, and negotiated like a boss.
I met with Suge Knight and said, look, man, what you want for Snoop?
They had a conversation, they got to understand it, worked out some numbers.
Told me what it was, and I put an extra $200,000 or $300,000 on.
P laid millions on the table, some in cash, plus points on Snoop's next 3 albums, and even tossed in an extra few $100,000 just to prove he wasn't bluffing. That wasn't just a business deal, it was a statement. Master P wasn't scared of Suge, Death Row, or the politics of the West Coast. He was walking into enemy territory with confidence. When the ink dried, Snoop Dogg officially became a no-limit soldier. But just because the paperwork was done didn't mean the danger disappeared. If anything, it got louder.
So now they were like, you owe Suge apology. I'm like, Suge, what?
Maybe Snoop was talking crazy to them and they caught him slipping.
The streets were watching every move and the tension was sizzling. It all came to a breaking point in 1998 during the I Got the Hookup comedy jam at the Universal Amphitheater. The crowd was sold out, energy sky high, fans screaming for the No Limit crew. But backstage, it was a whole different story. Snoop was by himself when 7 Death Row affiliates rolled up on him. They cornered him, leaned in close, and demanded that he apologize to Suge Knight, right then and there. The air was thick, and it felt like something explosive was about to go down. They thought they caught Snoop slipping, but he wasn't going out like that. He stood tall, ready to fight back. One punch flew, then another, and all hell broke loose. Chaos erupted backstage as Snoop bolted for safety while shouts and scuffles echoed through the building.
As soon as we come out the door, we got officers drawing punks in our faces and helicopter, blugga, 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 blugga. Get on the ground.
Word spread fast. Master P and the No Limit soldiers heard what was going down mid-performance. Without hesitation, they dropped their mics and sprinted off stage to back up their boy. The crowd panicked, thinking the gunshots from the backing track were real ones popping off. In seconds, the whole place turned into madness. Not just rappers clashing, but No Limit soldiers staring down nearly 20 police officers with shotguns aimed right at them. It was a full-on standoff, tense, loud, and dangerous. That night sealed Snoop's loyalty to Master P for life. But the real genius move came after the chaos cooled down. Fresh off his signing, Snoop wanted payback. He was ready to drop a diss album titled F Death Row, aimed directly at Suge Knight. To him, it was personal. But Master P saw the bigger picture. He knew that wasn't just reckless, it was straight-up suicide. Dropping that project would have put a target on Snoop's back bigger than any hit single ever could. So P stepped in like a general and shut it down. He told Snoop flat out, that album wasn't happening. And years later, even Snoop admitted, that move probably saved his life. Suge didn't take it easy, though. He called P from prison and told him, California ain't big enough for the both of us. P's reply? Cool as ice. When you movin'? That one line showed the world exactly who Master P was. Unbothered, fearless, and fully in control. Even locked up, Suge couldn't let it go. He threw shots at P for years, clowning his music, mocking his business, even talking trash about the No Limit tank logo. But deep down, the truth was clear. Master P had carved out permanent space in Suge Knight's head that he'd never be able to evict.
I went to Priority. They fly us to California. Then Slim, they come in there and said, man, I'm sorry, we can't do the deal. He said, because Master P said, if we sign y'all, he leave.
Wow.
And while P was flexing power on the West Coast, taking over where others feared to tread, another storm was brewing back home in New Orleans. A brand new dynasty was rising, Cash Money Records. If No Limit was the tank, Cash Money was the bird. And this wasn't just a business rivalry, it was personal. The Calliope projects versus the Magnolia projects, two hoods with deep history, and the tension between them was about to explode. Calliope and Magnolia didn't mix. Everybody in New Orleans knew that. So when two hip-hop empires started rising from opposite sides, you could feel it in the air. Tension was coming. But the first shots weren't fired in the streets. They were fired in the boardroom. At the time, Birdman and his brother Slim were grinding hard, trying to lock down a distribution deal. They took their shot with Priority Records, the same powerhouse that had Master P and No Limit running the game. But then came the problem, and Master P caught wind of it. According to whispers in the industry, P played his leverage card smooth and cold. He told Priority flat out, if you sign Cash Money, No Limit walks. And since P was Priority's golden goose, they listened. The label backed off Cash Money immediately, leaving Birdman and Slim hanging. They had no choice but to look elsewhere, and eventually they struck gold with Universal. P had basically built a business blockade, locking down his territory without firing a single shot. On paper, it looked like business competition, but underneath, the tension ran way deeper than contracts and charts. Then things took a darker turn. Tragedy hit home. Master P's cousin Randall Watts was slayed in the streets. For any family, that would have been heartbreaking enough. But in P's world, passing always kept popping up. Terrence Gangster Williams, Birdman's half-brother and a certified Magnolia legend. Terrence wasn't some random name. He was one of the original Hot Boys. Not the rap group, but the real street crew that inspired it. He had a serious reputation, the kind that made people lower their voices when his name came up. So when word reached Master P that Terrence might have been tied to his cousin's passing, that rumor hit deep. It wasn't about business anymore, it was personal. According to Terrence himself, the streets started buzzing that P had saying it was nothing but a misunderstanding. But in the streets, rumors move faster than truth. And once that kind of story spreads, it's unstoppable. True or not, it showed just how serious the tension had become between the tank and the bird. And what's wild is how both sides handled it in public. Calm, quiet, like nothing was happening at all. But behind the scenes, the city could feel the pressure rising. You never heard Master P throwing disses at Birdman on wax, and Birdman never fired back either. No diss tracks, no interviews full of slick talk or disrespect. On the surface, everything looked cool. Maybe not friendly, but definitely professional. But behind the scenes, it was a cold battle. Quiet, calculated, and full of tension that only insiders could feel. Still, none of that slowed Master P down. His vision had always been way bigger than topping the charts. He wasn't chasing one hit. He was building a legacy that touched every part of the culture. Even when No Limit was running the game and dropping gold and platinum albums like clockwork, P was already thinking 10 steps ahead. He was one of the first rappers to see hip-hop as a brand, something that could live in stores right beside Nike and McDonald's. That mindset turned him from an artist into an architect of the culture. P launched No Limit Films, a direct-to-VHS hustle that flipped the game completely. His first big hit, I'm 'Bout It, wasn't fancy or Hollywood polished, but it didn't need to be. It was raw, real, and straight from the block, the kind of story that spoke to his people loud and clear. That movie sold millions straight out the trunk and through local video shops. Then came 1998, and P went even bigger with I Got the Hookup. This time, he didn't just win the streets, he conquered the theaters too. The film racked up over $10 million at the box office, proving that Master P could play on Hollywood's turf without ever asking Hollywood for permission. But the man didn't stop there. Not even close. He branched out into sports management, signing real athletes like Heisman Trophy winner Ricky Williams to his agency. He launched clothing lines, shoe brands, and even built a real estate company that managed over 100 properties across the country. By 1998, while most rappers were still trying to land their first endorsement, Master P had already built a full-blown empire. His ventures pulling in a massive $110 million in revenue. He wasn't just making music anymore. He was redefining what it meant to be a boss in hip-hop. That number was wild for its time, unheard of. Master P wasn't just another rapper with a hit record, he was a full-blown mogul, a cultural icon who saw hip-hop not just as music, but as a movement. To him, it was a product, a lifestyle, and a brand that could feed generations, could be power. But even the biggest empires eventually start to crack. As the 2000s rolled in, P's focus began to shift. That old dream of playing in the NBA, the one that started back in the Calliope courts, came calling again. And crazy enough, he actually got close. Master P suited up for preseason runs with the Toronto Raptors and the Charlotte Hornets, proving that his drive had no limits. But while he was chasing that dream on the hardwood, his empire back home was slipping. In New Orleans, Cash Money Records was rising fast, and they weren't playing. They had Lil Wayne, Juvenile, BG, and later Drake and Nicki Minaj. An unstoppable lineup that began taking over the charts piece by piece, grabbing the same spotlight No Limit once owned. Inside No Limit, things started falling apart too. The label's powerhouse production team, Beats by the Pound, walked out after a messy money dispute. And that hit hard. Their sound was No Limit, gritty, bass heavy, and street to the core. Losing them was like losing the heartbeat of the brand. Then came the trouble that no amount of hustle could fix. Legal problems. Some of No Limit's biggest names got tangled up in serious cases tied to real-life violence, and that started to stain the company's image. The No Limit empire that had once rewritten the rules was now showing every crack in its armor. No Limit eventually filed for bankruptcy, not with a bang, but with a slow fade into history. The empire didn't crash overnight. It just quietly ran out of steam. But here's the truth. Master P's real legacy was never just about record sales or chart numbers. His impact ran way deeper than that. P studied the greats like Berry Gordy and Jay Prince, then went out and built his own lane from the ground up. He created the ultimate blueprint for independence, a game plan rappers still follow to this day. He showed artists they didn't need a label to save them. They could be the label. They could own their music, control their brand, and turn their name into a business that stretched across movies, fashion, food, and more. As Snoop Dogg once said, Master P brought money to the game. He showed rappers how to flip fame into a full-blown economy through touring, film, merch, and side hustles that built generational wealth. He proved you could rise from nothing, sit at the same table as corporate heavyweights, and never have to sell your soul to get there. Master P didn't just change hip-hop, he changed the mindset of every artist who came after him. His grind became the standard, his hustle became history, and his story still inspires the streets today. Now it's your turn. What do you think about Master P's rise and the empire he built from scratch? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, share this with the squad, and don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next one.